Bookcase and Coffee presents Buzzing About Romance, a quick shot of romance.
Okay, on this episode of A Quick Shot of Romance, I am joined by author Mindy McKinley, who has been a guest on the podcast as well as one of our Patreon supporters, and we are reviewing Cowboy Seeks Nanny, Book 1 of the Cowboy Classifieds by Janice Whitaker. Mindy, you want to read the synopsis from Goodreads?
I will. As a widowed father trying to build a family empire while juggling dirty diapers and bedtimes, Brody Pace has full hands and an empty bed. Losing his high school sweetheart after the birth of their twins left him broken, battered, and lonely. But business doesn't wait, and neither do toddlers. With Red Cedar Ranch expanding into new territory, there simply aren't enough hours in the day to be a full-time dad and a full-time foreman. Finding a nanny is a necessary evil, one Brody's much more inclined towards once he sets his eyes on the dark-haired beauty his mother hired to wrangle his headstrong daughters. Clara is everything he thought he would never find again. She's calm, caring, and compassionate. The sight of her with his daughter stoked something in him, deep inside him, something Brody thought was gone forever. Clara moved to Moss Creek, Montana on her last tank of gas, on a whim and a prayer. A contentious divorce left her and her sweet 8-year-old son with nowhere to go. No one to depend on. When she comes across the chance to work as a nanny on Red Cedar Ranch, it sounds like a dream come true. A beautiful place to live, income, security. And a cowboy with eyes as blue as ocean water and a drawl that makes her knees weak. But getting Brody close means putting the new life she just started on the line. It's a risk that could lead to complete devastation, or the happiness she never thought would be hers.
Okay, so this was released October 30th of 2020. And the tropes are cowboy, single mom, single dad, nanny, and widower. And there probably is a couple more in there because there's a lot of tropes. And the steam level is about a 3 out of 5.
I agree with that.
I mean, there's some steamy parts, but like overall, like there's plot. There's not just PWP.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about Brody and Clara's initial meeting. So it did not go super well.
No, I really actually enjoyed the bait and switch the author did with you meet his brother, Brett, first.
Uh-huh.
And I thought initially that was who she was supposed to be with, but then it's Brody. And so, yeah, they did not, well, they clearly liked each other, but they were very at odds.
They were, because she bases her initial reaction on the life that she has led with her ex-husband. So when he makes a comment about taking care of his daughter, she basically scoffs at him and is like, no, this isn't how like this happens. And he takes offense to that, which I mean, I get, but at the same time, it's like he doesn't know what she's survived and lived through. So but they were able to move past that fairly quickly, which was nice.
Yeah, I like that wasn't the crux of the whole book. It was a misunderstanding and a place to start.
Yeah, because once they had a little bit of a conversation about her past, then he was like, okay, it makes sense. Like, I was the jerk. Like, I didn't have to react that way. Like, she understands that she was wrong. She apologized, and they moved past it. Like, very adult.
Yes.
So I did love his brothers. Like you said, she first meets Brett, and he, like, sweet talks her and it's like, you can come with me. And like her son Wyatt almost has this instant connection with all of the brothers every time he comes in contact with one, which she was very surprised by that because he'd never had a good relationship with his dad. And I love that dynamic that he instantly latched on to these amazing role models for him.
Yeah, and I think I cannot wait to read the brothers' books. Mm-hmm. But because I needed to remember everything for this book, I've waited. But tonight I'm going to jump into the others. But yeah, I thought it was really neat because that the whole family just swooped Wyatt into their arms and just, he was them. He was part of the family. There was never a question. It was never awkward for Wyatt. Mm-hmm. It was never awkward for them. He became part of the clan and it was really cute.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that because that is one of the big themes throughout the book. So Boone is one of the brothers and he has been delegated to one of the ranch cabins because he made a dumbass choice when he was younger. And when he came back to the area, his mom shunned him to like this tiny cabin. She still loved him, still like showed him affection, but she did not take his side in any of this. And that was one of those things that Brody kept saying, like, if they move forward and something happens, you don't have to worry. Like, my mom and my dad will take you and Wyatt, and I will get kicked out. Like, and even his brothers were like, yes, if you do something stupid, like, you're going to be the one out of the house. Like, it's not them. Like, when they pull them into the fold, like, they are in the fold and he's out.
Yes, I like that a lot. I thought that was a really fun dynamic. And that Brody was mature enough to understand that if he did something wrong, he had to pay for it. And he knew that he had to be careful because her situation, her job, her living there was all she had. And he knew he couldn't put that on the line for her.
Right. Yeah. And I thought that was, but he also recognized the need and the want for Clara to be in his life, in his girls' lives, because his wife had passed away when the girls, like his twin girls, were born. And they don't really talk about like what happened or how it happened, just that it did happen. And he has tried to keep her memory alive, but it's tough because like he basically was thrown into single fatherhood with twin baby girls. And yes, he had his parents and yes, he had his brothers, but he didn't have his partner. It was a very different dynamic. But he recognized that like his girls latched on to Clara in a way that they had never done before. And they instantly like felt this connection with her. And she was such a positive influence in their lives.
I also like the dynamic of Leah and Michaela were not perfect girls. And the author showed Clara, using her skills to have them become better people. And so sometimes in books, like the children are all magically wonderful all the time, or so it was nice to see that there was a lot of reality with those kids.
And that was the big thing. Like they talked about, like there was a whole scenario where Michaela was having tantrums, and like she talked about the tantrums and they explained the tantrum. And it's like, as I was reading that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I lived this scenario. Like I still currently, like granted my kids are older than the twins were, but it's like I still live in that scenario some days. But it was nice to see, you're right, it's nice to see an author give a realistic depiction of kids being kids and acting like a kid would. Like they're not these perfect little specimens of life who never do anything wrong.
Yeah. They were more than just an awe factor, which was nice.
Yeah. But I also like the other side of that too, where Brody like pulls Wyatt in and is such a positive influence on him and includes him in everything that he's doing. Like, yes, he goes to school. Yes, he does these boy things, but at the same time, like they include him in everything in the ranch. They teach him how to ride. They teach him how to take care of the horses and immerse him in their ranch life.
I did enjoy the connection with the horses. Clara, who's never had a pet or never had anything in her whole life, she kind of falls for the horse Edgar, and it's such a sweet little, it's not much of the story, but it's very sweet. And I love when Wyatt gets to choose his horse. It's so sweet.
Well, she even talks about, because Wyatt is like gung-ho, I'm going to ride this horse, I'm going to go do this. And she's like, I don't know if I can even go near it. But Edgar, like, you're right, Edgar and her have this special connection. And I feel like it was purposeful because Edgar is his mom's horse. And I cannot think of his mom's name off the top of my head. But
Marianne?
I think you're right, which is funny because that's my mom's name.
I won't tell her.
Apparently, when it comes to books, I can't remember things like that. But yeah, I think that is right. But Edgar is Marianne's horse, and so like she has this special connection with Brody's mom, but then she has this connection with the horse too, and it's like it draws it in like from both aspects for them.
Yeah. There were a couple occasions, and this is just a small nitpicky thing, but they were having these really in-depth conversations, and I was so into the conversation, and then it was the end of the chapter, and I wanted more. So the only complaint I have is sometimes I just wanted a little bit more.
I mean, it's never a bad thing if your complaint is you're not getting enough.
Yeah.
But that was something too, though, like they didn't have surface conversations. And sometimes in books, that's what you get. And that's fine because it's the type of book you're reading. And it doesn't always bother me. But the conversations that Brody and Clara have, like, they're not surface. Like, they talk about, like, their feelings. They talk about that deep down emotion that they're feeling, and they get those out there.
Yeah. Pretty quickly, too, because she's, I think she's been hurt enough that she's not going to mess around with anybody who's not going to take her seriously. And so, she's never hiding how she feels.
No, she doesn't. And I love the addition of May and Liza.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Because that scene at the diner when the ex-husband shows up.
Dick.
Dick, yes. It's
Literally,
so
that's
fitting. It's so fitting. But so when Dick shows up and the ladies react the way they do and do what they did, and like the brothers show up and are like, we have to stop this because they're gonna go to jail. Like, I just love that. But it also too, like, it just shows you more like Clara is meant to be where she is, because these women have pulled her in, like, to the two of them. And I think that because she hasn't had like real friends and a real connection with anybody besides Wyatt in such a long time.
Right. Yeah, I did like that. I would have liked even more of the girls. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that there are more of them in future books, so I'm excited for that.
There are, and May and Boone are the second book, and I did read it because I just needed to know, and you won't be disappointed because
okay, good.
He was a dumbass, and but at the same time, like, it was good for them. Like, as you're reading the book, you're like, oh, he was so stupid, but like the farther in you get it, you're like, this was really good for them. So but you love his mom even more, like, because when he comes home, like, again, he is banished to the cabins. I just thought that was the funniest thing, because like in all of the brothers, like, even talk about that, like, two of the brothers, Brett and they're B names. They're all B names.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank, but two of the B brothers live together, and then Boone is banished by himself because he's an idiot. And then Brody lives in the main house with the girls. But that was also something too, like, once Brody made the decision that he was in, like, he was all in. Mm-hmm. Like, no passing go, like, nothing. Like, he was 100% like full steam ahead. Like, I'm getting married, or I'm marrying this woman. I'm building her a house. Like, Wyatt is my son. Like, we're go.
It was sexy because it was not just a man who's like taking a chance. It was a man who had a life experience for him to know that this is what he wanted, and that she was everything he'd been looking for, and he just wasn't going to let it pass him by. It was sexy. It
was, but I like the way that he comes across. Like, he is not an alpha hole or an alpha in any sense of the word. He's definitely cinnamon rolly. And but he's not pretentious. Pretentious isn't the word that I want to use there, but he's not like stubborn about it. Like, he's not rude, he's not demanding. He is just flat out like, these are the facts, like, very like, I'm laying this out there. What you do with it is up to you. Like, he says, I'm going to do this, this, and this. But if it's not okay with you, then we will work to that, which I loved.
Yes. I really liked Brody a lot.
I did too. He is actually one of my favorite like heroes that I have read recently, just because he's so dedicated to his children, but dedicated to the ranch, and really wants to do what is best for everybody around him. Like, he loves his family. He wants this ranch and this inn that they're building to be the best that they possibly can make it. But he honestly and truly wants his girls to succeed and be well-rounded, even though like they never will know their birth mother. Like, but that was something too that I enjoyed, is that Clara never shied away from talking about her. It was never a moot point. It was never a taboo subject. Like, she was open and willing to speak with him about her at any time. Yes.
And that's important, that there's no jealousy there, or, and any replacement type of,
exactly
thought process.
There was no like, I'm their mom now. Like they still just called her Lala or Klala or whatever, because I mean they're little. They can't say Clara very good. But she even like would talk to the girls about their mom, and like she was a real living process like in their lives, like with Clara. Like she was somebody that her name was spoken, and I love that.
Yeah, I did too.
So is there any other little tidbits or snippets that you want to talk about?
I did find, and maybe the answer is in future books, I did find the pool scene in the epilogue a little strange. But then it ended fine, because then she had the wedding. Well, I don't know. Are we doing spoilers?
I mean, you can spoil. It's older. It's not brand new.
Well, then the epilogue is better than when she does have the engagement ring that he snuck on her hands. So that was cute. I did like that.
Yeah. I agree. Like the epilogue, like the way it played out, I don't think it was the best epilogue I've read, but it definitely wasn't the worst. Like at least it's like somewhat in the future, and you're seeing like a little glimpse into what's happening, and yeah. So
and you do get to see the lodge coming together. I think that might have been the point of that particular pool scene, but
yeah, because it plays a big part, like the inn being finished and them starting to establish it. It plays a big part in certain sections of the next book. So.
Okay.
So, did you like this book?
I did. I liked it a lot. And I'm not normally a cowboy Western. I don't seek it out. I always enjoy it when I do read it, but it's not something that I'm from a smaller town in Nebraska, and I grew up kind of suffocated by the Western culture. And so I think I shun it as an adult, but then every time I read a well-written cowboy book, I'm like, oh yeah, this is great.
You're like, I live this. I don't need to read it. See, I love a good cowboy romance. I also grew up in a small town with lots of farms, but we didn't have a lot of cowboys. We're more of a cow farming area, or like a dairy farming area. So we didn't have a lot of cowboys. Like real cowboys, at least.
We had a lot of wannabe cowboys in my town. I don't know that there were many real cowboys around.
So who would typically like this book?
Well, anybody that loves a Western, of course. Anybody who loves, cinnamon roll hero, or a single parent romance, or a strong female. And I loved found family kind of feel to it.
Yes, I totally agree. It does have that found family for Clara and Wyatt. And people that like a low angst story, like
yes.
There was not a lot of angst. There was some push and pull. There was some drama with the ex, but overall, like the angst is very, very low. And I don't really like a high angst book unless I'm really in the mood for it. But yeah, I thought this one was well played out. Like it had the perfect amount of angst in it for me.
And I love the length. I think it took me 4 hours or so to read, which is perfect. If someone's busy, some of the books that we come across that are 400, 500 pages, I'm like, they're always good.
They seem very daunting though.
Yes. This one was,
it's a pretty quick read. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect length, but like a delicious snack. It was great.
A delicious snack. I love that. So would you recommend this book?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I would. I actually picked it for you to do this with. But this is actually my first Janice Whitaker. I have read her pen name, Gemma Westbrook, and I adored her in that like series that she has. And so like this has been on my TBR for a while, but I keep pushing it back because I'm like, I don't want to read it and then not like it and then like, be disappointed. But we had a perfect excuse to fill a bingo square.
So like, what is Gemma Westbrook's style?
Suspense. Ooh. It is suspense. Like the writing style is very similar, but she's a romantic suspense.
Love it.
But she actually is going with it. I don't know if Janice Whitaker is a pen name or her real name, but even so, like she's going to have a third pen name, which is Josie Watts. So she's sticking with that JW, and she is writing a rom-com. So I'm excited about that. So
very fun.
Yes. Well, Thank you so much, Mindy, for joining us on this quick shot of romance.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Happy reading, everybody.
Find us on Instagram at buzzingaboutromance or on Twitter at buzzingromance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.